An FCC commissioner is publicly condemning CBS's threats against Stephen Colbert not to air the interview with James Tallarico, the Texas state representative who is running for the Senate seat in Texas. The FCC commissioner is Ana Gomez. She was appointed previously in a liberal administration. Here's what she had to say. CBS is fully protected under the First Amendment to determine what interviews it airs. That makes its decision to yield to political pressure all the more disappointing. Corporate interests cannot justify retreating from airing newsworthy content. It should be noted that the FCC is now controlled by right-wing extremists like Brendan Carr. She's one of the remaining liberal voices on the FCC who's calling them out. Here's what she puts out through official FCC letterhead. Gomez condemns censorship of late-night interview. FCC Commissioner Ana Gomez issued the following statement after the Late Show host Stephen Colbert revealed that CBS declined to air an interview with a Democratic candidate amid ongoing political pressure from the FCC. This is yet another troubling example of corporate capitulation in the face of the administration's broader campaign to censor and control speech. The FCC has no lawful authority to pressure broadcasters for political purposes or to create a climate that chills free expression. CBS is fully protected under the First Amendment to determine what interviews it airs, which makes its decision to yield to political pressure all the more disappointing. It's no secret that Paramount, CBS's parent company, has regulatory matters before the government, but corporate interests cannot justify retreating from airing newsworthy content. The FCC is powerless to impose restrictions on protected speech, and any attempt to intimidate broadcasters into self-censorship undermines both press freedom and public trust. I once again urge broadcasters and their parent companies to stand firm against these unlawful pressures and continue exercising their constitutional right to speak freely and without government interference. Now, this is the statement put out by CBS. The Late Show was not prohibited by CBS from broadcasting the interview with Representative James Tallarico. The show was provided legal guidance that the broadcast could trigger the FCC equal time rule for two other candidates, including Representative Jasmine Crockett, and presented options for how the equal time for other candidates could be fulfilled. The Late Show decided to present the interview through its YouTube channel with on-air promotion on the broadcast rather than potentially providing equal time options. So CBS is out there saying, we basically threatened Colbert, but Colbert is lying and saying that we told him he couldn't do this interview. We just said, if you did, here's going to be the ramifications. Now, the thing is, if CBS actually cared about news and late night shows, it would want to naturally fight for the bona fide news exception and the exception that always applied to late night comedic programming in these late night shows like The Late Show. They've always been subject to an exemption from the equal whatever rule, the equal broadcast rule, that you have to then show people from the other party or competitors. They never had to do that. And the FCC just recently claimed that all of its prior interpretation was wrong. They put out a memo, and just because they put out a memo doesn't make this the law. They put out a memo on January 21, 2026, right around the time they started attacking The View. And they said, look, this bona fide news exception should no longer really apply, and we're challenging it, and the equal time rule is no longer really a thing. And, you know, if you show Democrats, then you've got to also show Republicans. If you show Republicans, you got to show Democrats. You have to show everybody. But the whole thing is there's a bona fide news exemption, which says you have a First Amendment right to do an interview with somebody, you know. And so to me, even assuming what CBS said it did is the true story, they're still providing incorrect legal guidance that exalts the fraudulent and phony legal guidance of the FCC above what the actual standards of the law is. And, you know, they would want to, if you're CBS and you're protecting your news and how you gather news and your First Amendment right to do these interviews, you wouldn't even be capitulating like this. So I want to bring in Harry Litman from the Talking Feds YouTube channel, Talking Feds podcast. I mean, look, at the end of the day, every action has an equal and opposite reaction, Harry. I mean, you and I are doing this video on YouTube right now. And when Colbert aired his video on YouTube, it ended up getting more views and more attention than it would have gotten. James Tallarico's name is now nationally known, which is something that, I guess he was hoping for too, running for this seat. And there's more attention that's been brought to it this way. And so, at the end of the day, one of the things, and this is a win for MeidasTouch, okay, if you're going to go and kill broadcast TV, people aren't even going to watch the thing, and they're going to watch us on YouTube, and they're going to watch it anywhere. Yeah. So you're like destroy. You know what it reminds me? Like the way Congress and MAGA Mike Johnson has totally capitulated their Article 1 powers, and they haven't even okay, so then you don't even exist anymore, Congress. You became the Speaker of the fake House. Great work, MAGA. You're holding a title, but you're Donald Trump's puppet when our founders wanted co-equal branches. Okay, CBS, okay, Paramount, you now are owned by, these right-wing people, but now nobody wants to watch your shows. So, okay, you own this thing that nobody watches. Great work, Brendan Carr. Great work. Nobody wants to see like Kid Rock perform or Nicki Minaj, go on Turning Point USA. Nobody wants to see, and yet they keep trying to use their MAGA tentacles to force these agendas on us. And it's like the American people aren't with this stuff, Harry.
Maybe not, Ben. And it's a good point you make. The Midas Mighty, you've built this tremendous enterprise with a huge channel of people coming to you instead. And when these things happen and when legacy media is debased more, there's the flock only increases. And that's good. I have followed you into this independent lane. All that said, CBS and the main broadcast channels, they still matter in this country, and First Amendment rights still matter in this country. And Brendan Carr really has been, and the FCC really have been completely trammeling them and doing politicized investigations or the sorts of things that I think, as the member you quoted accurately says, are barred by the First Amendment, but it's a corporation, CBS, and its parent corporation are sitting there thinking, well, the law may be that. I've got Floyd Abrams and reams of law to tell me they can't do that. But that's been part of the overall agenda of Trump 2.0. How can I illegally leverage other powers, for example, over approval of mergers? In order to make the content of late night TV and any TV more to my liking, more MAGA-y and less woke or whatever he would call it. That fact, call me old fashioned, but that's a horrifying notion that they somehow can leverage other legal tools to really influence what is okay and what is not okay on late night TV. And first, there's some factual dispute here. And time might have been when CBS says X and government says X and Colbert says Y that you might have thought, well, maybe there's something to X. But now, with everything we've seen from this administration and whoever plays ball with it, I'm thinking that I'd like to see the facts, but Colbert obviously thought this was an edict from on high, and I'll bet that lawyered statement from CBS really muddles what in fact did play as an edict from on high, and there is a difference. If CBS is accurate and they said, go ahead, guys, do whatever you want, and we'll fight the equal time battle, which, by the way, can you imagine? I'm thinking right now of Arnold Schwarzenegger announcing his candidacy for governorship in front of Jay Leno. Can you imagine if the requirement were, and the opponent has to come in and say that, that is not how late night TV worked. And if it did, it would really be debased and much worse for the American people. And all in all, maybe it evens out, but it doesn't matter. The law is the law. but not for these guys, because they think we'll ignore the law and use other kinds of tools to slap people around and have our way with them. And, legacy media, CBS and its parents, whatever, you can argue about this, but certainly to some degree fallen into line. And yeah, there are other places to go, Meidas, and the like, but man, oh man, if a major corporation and legacy media like CBS, NBC, ABC, PBS, whatever, is basically having to change its content in order to appease totally bogus First Amendment opinions by some powers that be in some boardroom somewhere, the country is the poorer for it.
Harry Litman runs the Talking Feds YouTube channel, Talking Feds Substack, and Talking Feds podcast. Harry, thanks for everything you do. Everybody subscribe to Harry Litman's YouTube channel, Talking Feds. Thanks, Harry.
Hey, thanks, Ben.
Want to stay plugged in? Become a subscriber to our Substack at MeidasPlus.com. You'll get daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, ad-free episodes of our podcast, and more exclusive content only available at MeidasPlus.com.